Hello guys, welcome to your 26th lesson in this VueJS course. And in this particular lesson, I'm getting more and more and more excited because in this lesson, we're going to be looking at actually fetching data from a particular API into our recipe app and to make it functional. So without any further ado, let's dive right in. Okay, so I have the our recipe app opened right here, and as we can see, as we saw in previous lessons, this aspect was actually from a JSON file which I actually added into our project. Okay, and moving on, the API we're going to be making use of is this MailDB API right here, and it has exposed tons of APIs that we actually need. And by now, I'm sure that we're familiar with what endpoints are actually here, and we can see right here to get the mail name. I can just open this right here in a new tab and make the get request directly inside of our browser right here. And as we can see, one of the features of the Firefox developer edition is it's going to help us format our JSON file nicely. I can decide to collapse everything. We can see it returns mails, and inside of the mails we have an array, and the first item we see it's an object, and we have all this data. We have the mail ID, the mail name, we have the category, we have the area, we have the instructions, we have the thumbnail, we have the tags, YouTube link, and we have a whole host of information that we might need. And we can see if we should, let's say, list all meals by first letter. We can search, and I can just maybe copy these. Let me open in a new tab, and we're going to see, okay, the meals. Let's collapse these. Okay, we can see we have four items right here, each of them an array of objects. Okay, so we can see right here all the details that we might need, and look up a selection of, we can also get a random meal, get a selection of 10 random meals, but this is only available to PayPal supporters, those that support the API. And if you can, I would really advise you actually support APIs like this. So these public APIs make it easy for a developer to actually test or to build various applications, either as practice or something you actually want to push out to the public. Okay, and that's one of the reasons I'm actually even considering building a public API like this, to make it easier for developers to especially practice and build various applications out of. All right, so I think we've seen enough. Let's actually dive into the code and let's actually get started on fetching our data. All right, so as we have previously seen, we have four major categories. Let me come right here to the browser. I'm going to close this. We're going to make the fetch in our application soon. And right here we have this aspect. We don't need to concern ourselves with this fetch any data in this particular component. So each data is going to be fetched component by component where it is needed. Okay, the hero, we don't need to fetch any data right here. Now let's move on. The recipe of the day, of the moment, which is the food of the day component. This right here, we're going to need to make a fetch to the API right here. And popular foods, we don't need to connect to any API. This component right here. But then the featured recipe, we also need to actually get some data right here, to fetch some data from the API. So firstly, we need to open this component and work also fetch data right here in this component. So to make things to open this up, you could either find it where you have it right here. We can open it from the here, but I just quickly want to show us a quick shortcut. You can also search right here, and you can search for the particular component you are looking for right here. Or another thing is, you can just control click on this. So I can just control click on home food of the day right here, and we can see that it opened it up. All right, so the first thing I actually want to do is I need to create a variable. So I'm going to create a variable which is going to contain my meal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say let home food of the day, or let's say food of the day. So that is going to be equal to, at this stage, I'm going to say I want it to be null. Okay, so we said the food of the day is actually null. Now the second thing is, let's create a function which is going to fetch the data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say axios. Okay, and one other thing is we have to change this to, okay, ref. So I'm going to import ref, okay, from view. All right, so we can do something such as axios dot, or rather, instead of calling this directly, can say const get recipe of the moment. Okay, and that is going to be equal to a function right here which we are going to call. And another thing, I want this to rename this to recipe of the moment. Okay, so we have this recipe of the moment right here. So I'm just going to paste in this function. So we have right here axios.get. It's nothing we haven't seen before. So we're essentially getting a random meal recipe right here from the API, and we are logging it to the console. Okay, so we are logging into the console, and if we get any error, we also log that to the console. All right, so we are not assigning anything yet, but let's save it and let's come back right here, and I'm going to come to my console and I'm going to scroll up. So let's see now, whenever this gets mounted, okay, or gets created, we should see this loading automatically, but we are not seeing it right here. So that is because we actually didn't call this. So I'm just going to come here and I'm going to call the function right here. Okay, so let's see what we get. We can see it right here. Okay, so right down here we can see we have an object, and inside of the data we have this. So let's actually say console.log response.data. Okay, so I'm going to save that, and that's going to make another request. That should make another request. Okay, let me just refresh this so we can see that in action. And okay, we can see it right here. So we have this meals object right here, and we have, okay, just one item inside of the array. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create another variable. Okay, the variable is going to be loading. Okay, so just to have a kind of loader, and then we can say the rep is going to be false. Okay, so this variable won't do anything yet, but it's just nice to have a variable to let us know that this particular thing is loading. And what we're basically going to do is, now this recipe of the moment, the data we got from here, we're going to actually assign it to this recipe of the moment. So, and to be exact, inside of this object, this response does data that we're logging to the console, we have the meals. Now inside of the meals we have an array. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to say response.data.meals, and since it's an array, the first item in the array. So now let's save that, and I'm going to just, okay, we can see it right here. So we have the object that we actually need to render inside of this particular component. So how about we do that right now? So we're going to say, okay, recipe of the moment dot value equal to this right here. So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste this here. Okay, so we can just remove that. And another thing is, okay, let's just save that and let's see. So that would still run, but we are not getting it in the console anymore. Okay, good. Now what we can do is we can actually make use of this recipe of the moment right here. So we can come here, instead of recipe.name, I can just do this, use our string interpolation, and we can say recipe of the moment, and then right here we can see we have the str meal data right here. Okay, the key, we're just going to say dot this, and then let's save, and we should see it show right here, and we can see it right here. We are actually putting it out. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is the instruction. So I'm going to say, let's just copy this and I'm just going to replace all the static data with dynamic data. Okay, so we can say str, I think that should be instructions. Okay, so let's save that and let's see what we have. Oh, we can see it right here. Now, another thing though is I don't want to actually display everything, all of the instruction we have. I only want to display like, okay, the first maybe 10 words. And to do that, we can just use a particular JavaScript string method. So I can use dot substring, and right here this particular method takes in two parameters. Okay, we want it to start at position 0, so it's going to start at this particular position, and then the particular position we actually want to clip to. Okay, and we can say auto stop, clip to auto stop, whichever one works. So right there I want the first 100 characters, so from 0 to 100, and or let's just use 99. And right here we add this particular dot dot dot, and let's save that and we should see. Okay, so we can see it right here. Okay, that is working. And then the next thing we want to do is do something such as we should have a category right here. Okay, so we want the category also, and what I'm going to do is instead of this we are going to have, okay, recipe of the moment dot str category. So let's paste that in and then we can change this to category. And right here inside of the param, remember we actually hard coded this particular value right here, and what we are essentially going to do is we are going to replace it with this particular category we have right here. Okay, so what I'm basically going to do is come right here, instead of having this we can just have, let's just paste this here dot str category. So I'm just going to say to lowercase. Okay, so let's save that and let's see what we have. We can see it right here. Okay, under miscellaneous. All right, that's good. And now the more recipe details. So we can see that each of these, each of the meal we get, any meal we get, we also have an ID. Okay, so we have an ID. Okay, so let's just put the ID right here, and I'm just going to copy this right here and view recipe detail, more recipe details. Just paste this in here and we can say str, or rather id meal. Yeah, so we can say id meal. Okay, so let's save that and let's see. We can see now this is being dynamic. We are not loading this from maybe a particular static file or anything. This is being loaded from the API. Now another thing is, let's actually change this image we have right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for str image. I think they have a data like that. Okay, so we have the str mean thumb. Okay, so this is where we get the meal thumbnail, and right here inside of this here we can just bind this and we can do, let me just remove this. Okay, so we can say recipe of the moment dot str thumbnail. So let's see that and let's see if it works. Okay, and yeah, we can see it works. We are having this being loaded. Now if I should refresh this, since we are loading using this particular endpoint and loading a randomly, we should see another detail right here. Okay, we should see it right here. Okay, we can see it here. And now this particular error we just got here, I'm going to show you how to actually undo that. That's because initially, remember, this is actually null. This is null initially, but from the onset right here we are trying to access a value that does not exist yet. So to actually combat that, what we are going to do is, there are two ways to handle this, but I'm going to show you the easiest way out of this. Whenever we run this particular function, we want to do something such as loading. So loading dot value, we want to set it equals to true, and once we are done with that, right here we can say set it back to false, and then we can say loading dot value equals to false, and then also here if there's an error we want to set it to false. And what we essentially want to do is right here, we want to do something such as whenever this is loading, this component is loading, we want to show something else. Okay, so what I'm essentially going to do is I'm going to use a v directive. I'm going to say v if, okay, so v if not loading. So as long as this is not loading, yeah, we actually want to load this. And also another thing is this recipe of the moment, as long as it's not loading and the recipe of the moment is not equals to null. Okay, so once these two conditions are actually true, the recipe of the moment is not equals to null, and also this particular function is not still in the loading state, we want to display this. So now let's save that, and I'm just going to clear the console and I'm going to refresh. Now we can see we are not getting the error any longer. Okay, so we are not getting the error anymore. And another thing that would be nice though is to kind of have a loading section showing whenever this is actually loading. And to do that, I'm just going to create a new component. So right here, I could put it in partials, but no, since this is going to just be kind of like an element, so I'm going to create a new folder right here. I'm going to say elements, and inside of the element I'm going to say loading.view. All right, so I'm just going to create, okay, this right here, and what we're basically going to have is very simple. I'm just going to copy and paste right here. So essentially I'm just going to highlight this and I'm going to paste this right here. Okay, so what we are going to do is, let me just collapse this. I'm going to import this component right here, and what I'm going to do is, okay, instead of naming this as loading, I'm going to name it as loader. Okay, so what we're essentially going to do is right here, I'm going to say loader. Okay, and did that get imported? No, so let's do that again. Loader, and right here, okay, we can see it here. Okay, so we are importing the loader from loader, and then yeah, so we can use v if directive right here. I can say v if, and if the loading is actually equals to true, so if loading, so essentially I can just put this here. This will automatically evaluate as true. Okay, so if loading or if loading equals true, still the same thing. All right, so if the value of loading is equals to true, aha, so this should actually show up. And let's quickly save that and demo that. So let's see. Okay, we are not seeing this right here. Okay, I think there is an error somewhere right here. Okay, so we are having a cause error, so let me just refresh that. Okay, we can see it right here, loading all fine. All right, so to actually demo that, let me quickly do something, which is this. So I'm just going to set timeout just to kind of add a kind of delay. Okay, so let's just do that. And what we want is we want to add 4 seconds. Okay, so I'm just going to copy everything we have right here and just paste it here just to have a kind of demo. So we have 4 seconds. We can see this is loaded. I just wanted to show us this. All right, that works. So I'm just going to undo what I just did now. So we can see our recipe of the moment is basically working fine. Okay, so we see it's working fine. How about we actually go and we come to the featured recipes? Okay, now if we should look right here inside of this API endpoint, we don't actually have a kind of featured recipe. And if we should look here at this selection of 10 random meals, it's only available to PayPal supporters. Okay, so there is actually a workaround that I'm going to show you on getting 3 different items at the same time from our API. All right, let's now move on. We've done the home food of the day. Let's move on to the featured recipes. Now for the featured recipes, I'm basically going to create okay, so right here I'm going to say functions. Okay, and let's see, we have an error somewhere. So we can say functions, and let's quickly create our function. Okay, so I'm just going to copy some of these that we have right here. So let's copy this for now, and I'm just going to come down right here and I'm going to paste all this here. Okay, the first thing is, let's quickly tidy this up. We want our component um, import to be at the same place right here. Now we don't want recipe of the moment, so I'm just going to um, do this. Let's comment that out. So this is going to be recipes, and this is going to be at the moment an empty array, and we're going to have this. So we're going to say get featured recipes. Okay, so we are basically going to leave almost everything the same, and this right here is going to be recipes dot value is going to be equal to response dot data dot meals. Or for now, let's just console log that to the console. Okay, response. All right, so we have this get featured recipes, and we have to also call it here for it to work. Now remember, we are not just calling the random endpoint. So what we essentially want to do is, now the first thing, like I was saying earlier, is we can actually fetch this random 3 times. Okay, we can use the axios dot maybe all settled. Yeah, we can make use of that. But another way, easier way that we can actually manipulate is filtering by category. Now if I should open this up, let me copy this and make the request directly inside of the browser. We are going to see, okay, let me collapse everything. Okay, we're going to see meals, and then we have tons of data right here. We have about 27 different data right here, and we can see it returns the string, and it returns the thumbnail, and then it returns the ID, which is kind of essentially what we need here. We don't need bunch of details right here in all these cards right here. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this API here. Now we can just paste the API right here. Okay, so let's paste it and let's save and come back right here. Okay, we are seeing some errors. Let's see, we are seeing some errors right here. Okay, let me refresh that and let's see. Oh, ref is not defined. Sorry, a silly mistake. And what I'm essentially going to do is ref. So let's use, yeah, and then it auto imports this right here. So I'm going to save again, and we should come, when we come down here, we should see, we shouldn't see the error. Okay, access is not defined. Sorry, that was a stupid mistake, an uncalled for mistake. Okay, so let's see, and we can, let's see, do we have any other errors? Nope. But we can see it making the get request right here. And for those of you that you are not seeing the details of your fetch or of your API or network request here, you can toggle this on and off here. So if I should toggle this off using this XHR, so I won't see it again. But if I should bring it back, now we can actually visibly see that. All right. So we are not getting it logged into the console. So let's just refresh to make sure that everything is on track. Okay, so let's see. All right, so down here we can see it here. So under here we have the data, and we have 28 items being returned. Okay, so what we essentially want to do is we need to get the first 3 data right here. This is returning about 28 different data right here, but we need the first 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, okay, recipe.value is going to be equals to data.meals. That's fine, but then we're going to use another array method on this to only get the first 3, and the one I'm going to make use of is dot splice, and we're going to say 0, and then we where the particular points we actually need it to stop. So I'm going to say 0 and 3. Now let me quickly, before we actually um assign this, let's quickly log this to the console. So what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to wrap all this in a console.log, and let's just remove this. So let's save that and let's come right here. So I'm going to just refresh this real quick. And we can see it right here. It's only returned 3 elements out of the array, even though right here inside of this we got 25 different objects. Okay, but right here we can see it's only returned the 3, 0, 1, 2 indexes. All right, so that's how it actually works. You tell it the point you want to start, and then you tell it the amount of count you actually need. All right, so let's undo that, and okay, we can just assign it directly, and let's save and let's see what we have. Okay, so I'm just going to refresh this real quick, clear out the console, and coming down here, okay, we should see. Okay, so we can see it right here. So everything we get is just from a single category, but we are going to fix that in future lessons. All right, so this is looking all good and nice, and I'm just going to remove the console.log that we have right here. So let's just remove that, and at least we are getting every of our data dynamically. So I'm just going to remove this since we don't actually need that again. Now let's actually add a kind of loader the same way we implemented here. So I'm just going to be quick with this. I'm going to say okay, v-if loading, and then we're just going to put it right here. And also we want this to only show if not loading, as long as it's not loading. And oh sorry, and now recipes dot length. So if the recipe is has maybe one or more, this is going to be evaluate to true. But if the recipe dot length is actually 0, that is if it does not have anything, it's going to evaluate to false. All right, so let's save that and let's do something. Okay, we can see it right here. So the loader actually works. All right, so we've done some of the components necessary. What about the recipe page itself? We can see, okay, since we are making use of the same components, we can see that actually works fine. And what about, okay, for this particular featured recipes, that also works fine. Now what we need to actually sort out is for this particular recipe page. Okay, so we need to sort out for this. Let's quickly do that. Okay, so right here inside the recipes view, okay, we have this already connecting to the API, and also this connecting to the API. So we have the recipes list left, and if we should open that up, we can see it actually controls this aspect right here. Okay, so for now we are going to be loading from a single recipe, and we're going to be looking at, okay, how to automatically load from various recipes whenever this value right here changes. Okay, so we get, okay, updated from each of this category, and then also making sure that the category is kind of a bit dynamic also. All right, but for now let's load from the default category, which is going to be the seafood category. So let's do that. And what I'm essentially going to do is the same thing here. I'm just going to come here and I'm going to copy this right here, everything we have here. So let's just copy that, and okay, so let's just copy that right here and come down here, and I'm just going to paste that in. All right, that should work. And another thing we're going to do is we're going to copy this here, and I'm just going to paste this. I'm just going to paste this maybe up here. And okay, so and another thing is we're going to copy this v directive, and let's copy that and let's put that right here. Okay, so let's save that and let's see what we have. Okay, not quite what we wanted, what we want rather. And I'm just going to remove that, and I think that should be okay. That should be here. Okay, so let's save that and let's see what we have again. So I'm just going to refresh, and we should see that, okay, featured recipes. Okay, okay, so we can see recipes for you, and we have this from category 1. We don't want category 1, so let's just still kind of add code that we are going to make use of seafood. All right, so let's see loading from seafood. Okay, so let's save that and let's see what we have. So we have right here category seafood, and okay, we have this loading. Yeah, and that works. So is there any other component that we need? Okay, how about the on the category detail page? So right here, whenever we come click on a category, okay, so we are seeing this particular category one, and right here we can see, okay, recipes in pasta. This is also still kind of statically loaded. All right, so let's actually fix this too. I'm going to come to under the views right here. We have the recipe category view. Okay, so we have the recipe category view here. I'm going to click on that, and firstly we have, okay, the recipe category view, this first section, and also we have this second section. Now to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to create a component. I'm going to say recipe category info dot view. Okay, so we're just going to do this, and I'm just going to copy everything we have here just to make it easier to manage our components. So let's cut that and let's just paste that in here, and that should work fine. So we can essentially say recipe category info. Okay, and we can see that should work fine. Okay, and this our src, our image is not loading, and let's see that's because we've changed the path has changed, and we're just going to do this. Okay, so let's save that. That should work now. Okay, we can see it works now. The first thing I actually want to do is right here we are not making use of the options API, we're making use of the composition API, and this is something that by now I am sure that you'll be able to handle, but let's just quickly work on that. So I'm going to copy, let's just copy from, let's see, which of the components did we work on initially. Okay, so home food of the day. So I'm just essentially going to copy all of these, and we're just going to change them up and tidy it up later down the end of the course. Okay, so what we have here is, instead of recipe of the moment, I'm going to say recipe info, and by now, for now, it's going to be null. So what I'm going to do is change this from get recipe of the moment to get recipe, no, get category info. All right, so let's save that, and right here I'm going to change this to category info also. So let's change this to category info, and what I'm essentially going to do is we're not going to use the random endpoint, since what we essentially need is we want the category detail. So right here, if I should copy this and I should open this up and make the request in the browser, we're going to see some interesting results. Now we get all of the categories right here. We can see all the categories right here and a bit of description that comes with them. Okay, and this is where we're actually going to make our request to, since we don't have a way to actually get the category info in the endpoint directly. We don't have a specific URI for that. So let's actually come here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this, and I'm going to paste this here, and what we want to do is console.log and then response. Okay, so let's save that and let's see what we've got. Okay, we are having a bad request response here, so let's refresh that and let's come here. So let's see what the issue is exactly. Okay, it says this is not found, and that is basically because I didn't put this right here. So this should work now, and if we should come down here, we should see it right here. Okay, that works. So we want console.log response.data. Now we can see how the category is right here. Now the first thing I actually want to do is we can basically filter all of this category that we have yet to get this category, this pasta category. And to actually do that, the first thing we need is we need to get a way to actually extract the name of the route we are on, okay, from view router. And the way to do that, we saw something similar in the previous lesson. So what we can basically do is we can import something from view router. Okay, so we want to import the route. I think that should be the use route. Okay, so what we essentially want to do is we want to say something such as const route is going to be equals to use route. And if I should save that, and I should do something such as console.log, so we are logging into the console route, and we should see some interesting details. So right here, proxy, and we can see under target right here, we see the full path. We have the full path right here. We have the hash, we have the params right here. So let's do something such as route dot params. Okay, so I'm just going to save that, and I'm going to come down here. We can see the name is pasta, so we are able to get that particular route we are on. So we can say dot name, and saving that, we should get pasta, just pasta here. So what we can do is right here we have the response.data, and we can essentially just filter it out. And if we should check under this category, we can see beef, chicken, lamb, these desserts, and we can see miscellaneous. We have pasta right here. Good. So what we're essentially going to do is we're going to say const, or let me just use let current category equal to response dot data dot, think that should be meals, or rather categories dot categories dot filter. So we want to run this dot filter method, and this actually takes in a callback function, and I'm just going to use an arrow function directly, and I'm going to say category. Okay, and then we only want to return it if category dot, okay, category dot stl category dot to lowercase is equal to. Now we actually want to save this particular current this parameter, route parameter, inside of this category here. So I'm going to do something such as, okay, just copy this right here, and I'm just going to clear this, and I'm going to say const category equal to, okay, so we can have this, we save it inside of a variable. So I'm going to say, instead of just category, I'm going to say current category. Okay, so let's just copy that and let's put it here. All right, so now we are just going to say console.log current category. Now let's see if that would actually work, and I'm just going to refresh this, and let's load this again, and we should see right here once this has finished loading. Okay, we're having a bit of an error, so let's see. Okay, there are various ways to actually solve that, but the easiest I'm going to go with right now, because I'm feeling a bit lazy, is just to use this directly. And we can just remove this, and let's save that, and let's refresh this. So we should see it. Okay, we are getting that particular category right here. All right, that makes sense. And what I can essentially then do is I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to say this category info dot value is going to be equal to current category, so the first item. Okay, so let's do that, and let's save, and that should work. Now the next thing we're actually going to do is I'm going to say category info, so we're just going to copy that, and all this we have here, so I'm going to replace it with category info dot. So what are we trying to access? Right here we can see we have some bunch of data, so I'm just going to copy the category description right here and the name of the category. So let's just copy this, and inside of category 1 replace it with the str category. So let's put this here, and then the next thing is we have tags. Okay, right here, do we have tag returned? Okay, we don't have tags returned. Okay, and which, if we don't, let's just, for now we can just do something such as comment this part out. Okay, so let's just comment this part out for now, and I'm going to save that, and we should see more about pasta. All right, that is looking fine. And viewing category 1, we have to replace that also. Okay, viewing category 1, so let's just copy this right here and then replace it here. Okay, and then the last thing is also the this right here. Okay, so I'm just going to change the image to, now we are not using this, and okay, instead of str category, I think we have str category thumb, and putting this here, that should work just fine. All right, we can see it here, viewing pasta. All right, that's looking great. Now how about the recipes in pasta? Now if we should come here again, we can see we can filter by category, and what we're essentially going to do is that. Now let's see under the category recipe category list. So what I'm going to do is, let's close this, let's close this featured recipe, and nope, I'm going to just copy everything we have right here, and I'm just going to copy it. Okay, and let's just paste this here. Now what we're going to do is change the name of the function is get category recipes, and that should work. So that's the first thing we need to do. Now the second thing we need to do is right here, we're going to copy this particular thing we imported. So I'm just going to copy this right here just to make things a bit much more easier, and we're going to, like I mentioned, clean this up a bit later on. So we're going to say route equals to use routes. All right, now remember, right here we are not just going through any category but a specific category. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use template tags right here, and right here remove this, and this say equals seafood. We are not using just this, we are going to say routes dot params dot name. All right, so that should get the parameter name, and depending on the route should actually give us what we need. And I'm going to just remove this. We want to actually render everything we get right here and look through everything right here. All right, so let's see. Another thing we didn't do is we didn't make use of this our loader element right here. So I'm just going to kind of quickly do that. Now right here we're going to say, let me just copy this from here. So let's just copy this to make this faster. Okay, no, I'm going to do for everything that we have here, and basically going to copy this right here and paste it right here. All right, so let's save that, and also we're going to do something similar right here, and I'm just going to um put this here, and something similar we did. Okay, so let's just put it here, and another thing is whenever, okay, this is still loading, so if, okay, sorry, let me just copy that and then this is only going to show if this is not loading. And okay, yeah, I already added it here, sorry about that. And what I'm going to do is category info. We don't have recipes dot length here, we don't have recipes here, so I'm just going to say and category info is not equal to none. Okay, so that should work fine now. And also right here, let's save. Okay, so coming right here, we should see this. And what about the recipes in pasta? Okay, everything works fine right now. And the remaining thing I think that is left is, okay, we can still see this is still being dummy text right here. So let's actually go to our recipe card. So I'm just going to close all these here and come right there inside of the component and the recipe card. So instead of we actually having all this here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say recipe dot id. I think that should be id meal. Let's check, let's have a look. And that should be id meal. So this is essentially what we want, dot id meal. All right, and let's save that. And let's see, we should have dynamic links right now. Okay, we can see it works, we are getting dynamic links. All right, so the next thing we actually need to do is let's just click on any of these right here. So clicking on this, all right, we have this being loaded. So you see, we don't actually have to, the recipe of the moment, we don't have to manually make the API call again, or edit this part again, since we are using the same component. And this featured recipe also loads fine from the API. So the only API call we need to make right now is for the meal detail page right here. Okay, so let's just get right started on that right now. Okay, so right here inside of the views, yeah, inside of the views right here, we have the recipe detail view, and we see the unfeatured recipes. We've handled that already. Okay, the home food of the day. Now what is left is the recipe details info. So we're going to convert these into the composition API, make use of the composition API. I'm going to say setup. Now the next thing I need to do is we need to actually import everything we need. So moving up right here, I think the category, recipe category info, no, recipe category list right here. Now what we essentially want to do is I'm just going to copy this, everything we actually have right here, and I'm just going to paste that in. Now we're going to make some bit of changes. Obviously right there we don't need the recipe card. Okay, we still need to make use of the route. Now we don't need to actually create a recipes. All we need to do is we need to create a, okay, let's just change that from recipes to singular recipe, and right here is going to be null. Okay, and what we want to do next is I'm just going to console.log this. Okay, console.log response.data. Okay, response.data, and this is going to change from get res category recipes to get recipes detail. So get recipe detail. Okay, so let's change that, and let's see if this is going to work. Now is this supposed to be route.params.name? Let's quickly check our router configuration file right here, and we should see what we actually use. Okay, that should be id, okay, not name. So id, and in case you are confused, this is it right here. We made use of id right here. And unlike the recipe categories page, detail page, where we made use of name, so this is the params we actually accept in the route params, but for this the route params is named as id. All right, so let's save that and let's see what we actually get. Okay, save, and we should see it try to fetch this, and right here we see it's null. Okay, we are having, let's see. Okay, we are making the request to the wrong endpoint. Now for this to look up by ID, what we actually have to do is use this right here, this particular endpoint. So we are making use of the wrong endpoint. So let's just remove all this that we have here and make use of the right one. Okay, so coming back here, I'm just going to reload. Okay, we're still getting a bit of response error here, and we can see this is not found. Okay, that is also because we didn't add the HTTPS. Okay, so let's save that and let's clear the console. All right, we can see it right here. Okay, we can see it right here. Now the first thing I actually want to do, which I'm still essentially going to do in the recipe category page, is we actually want to kind of have a bit of an error handling. So if response.data.meals and response.data.meals is not equals to null. Okay, so we want to actually do everything we need to do, else we actually want to console.log not, or let's say, invalid id. Okay, so let's save that and let's see if I should come right here and I should type in something invalid. Okay, we can see right here we have invalid id. All right, but if we should go to something else, let's see, let's try and come right here and click on this, come to this particular um endpoint. So let me just refresh, and we can see it's actually not giving us any error right here. So that's what we actually need to do. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to say recipe dot value is going to be equal to response dot data dot meals, and then the first one right here that it returns. So response dot data dot meals, and let's actually then render it out here. Okay, so we've gotten the details from the API. Now what if it is not, what if this particular response that we get is not valid? Okay, what if this right here, this condition is false? One thing we can do is we can just, I'm just going to paste this right here. So it's going to allow that this mail doesn't exist, and it's going to push to the 404 page. But then we don't have the router object created right here, we don't have the instance created. So I'm going to say use router, and I'm just going to duplicate this and going to say router is going to be equal to use router. So if we should save this and we should come to, let's see, something that doesn't exist, and it tries to connect to the API and it says that, oh, this is does not exist. So I will click on OK. It's going to redirect us to the 404 page. Okay, so but we haven't created the 404 page right here in this particular app, so we are going to do that later on. Okay, so let's come down here and we should see the recipe details, and then we can come here, we can see it right here. Okay, so everything is working as it should right now. So to render this out, instead of it taking a whole lot of time, I'm just going to paste this in. But first, let me clean up the console.log here and also right here. Okay, so let's just quickly do that. Let me just quickly copy this, paste this in rather. But to make things less confusing, I'm just going to replace this with meal detail. Okay, so let's see, and I'm just going to replace it here and here. Okay, that should work fine now. Okay, just to be clear, let's make this meal details. Okay, meal details, and right here, come up here, and I'm just going to copy everything we have inside of the templates, and I'm just going to replace this with this particular data. I know, right? Yeah, so much. Okay. Anyway, these are things that you could probably go through. It's basically just rendering all of our dynamic data. And also, as before, we can just come right here, and I'm just going to grab let's see, under partials, let's come here, and I'm just going to grab this loader right here, and I'm going to render it. Let me just render it down here. So if it's loading, and then it's going to render that, and then let's save and let's preview. Okay, so we can see peanut butter cookies. Wow, that's nice. How about we come down here? We can see everything has actually been replaced and is dynamic. How about we check baked salmon with fennel and tomatoes? And okay, we are not seeing that getting updated right here, but so it so happens whenever we refresh, okay, it fetches and we can see this right here. So how do we actually quickly fix this to make sure that every time we actually go to a new route, we don't get presented we still with the old data that okay we still have right here. Now, to handle this, your first instinct might be to make use of watch, import watch from view, or do this or that. Now, one thing I need to point out is for various developers, for different developers, there are various ways they might actually think of handling this. In fact, I think I could think of about three different ways at least, or two different ways to actually handle this. But let me give you a real awesome and easy way to actually do this. Now, in the view router, it gives us the view router actually gives us something which is on before route leave, before route update, and before route all this. Okay, so we have on before route update. Now what we essentially want to, what this does, it's going to actually pick up before the route changes, okay, before the route gets updated. So let me give us a quick demo, and what we are going to do is I'm going to call this right here, and this here I'm going to say it's going to be async, and right here it's going to take in a callback function. Now, this callback function is going to take into values which is to and from. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to console.log to, and then we are going to console.log from. Okay, so let's see how that actually works. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to come here, and right here, let's see. Okay, so we have this particular recipe right here, and if I should come here and I should click on maybe this one, okay, no, this one right here, and we can see we get this instead. We get this full part, okay, the params. So the previous params, we got it right here. We can see the previous ID, which was okay. Okay, this is the present ID, sorry, and the other one is the previous ID, which is this. So as the route changes, we are going to get the previous and the present. Okay, so this is the to right here, and this is the from right here. Okay, so we can see we came here to 52944, and the previous one, which is the from, the route we are coming from, is 52819. So same way, if we should click on this, we should get, if the route is changing, okay, let's click on um this right here. Okay, we can see it also, same thing that we have right here. All right, so what we can actually do is we can check if to.params dot id is not equal to from dot params dot id. So as long as the params, the id is actually changing, okay, we actually want to run this particular function. Okay, so let's save that and let's actually run it. And we can see, okay, now we have this particular route we are on. So if I should come and I should click on, currently we are on 52959. If I should click on this, and then we can see, if we should scroll up, we can see that, okay, it actually fetched the next one, okay, and we can see when we click on this, okay, that should actually fetch this. okay, we are not longer left with stale data, and whenever the route the params actually changes, okay, we are getting fresh data right from the API, which is pretty much awesome, you know. So let's go over what we've built so far. And right here on the home page, right here, we can see, okay, this is looking nice. Wow, I would love to take this sometime. Okay, and we can see the featured recipes right here. We are still fetching from seafood, that's why we still have this. Okay, and how about if we go to the recipe page itself? Oh, we can see this, and we're going to handle these emojis very soon. Okay, we can see beef and mustard pie. This is looking nice. And also we can see the recipes for you and also the featured recipes. Okay, how about we actually go to a particular category? So I'm going to scroll up. Let's scroll up and come to this category detail page, beef, and we should see this load. And oh, we are seeing more about beef. This is looking real nice, and we can see more and more. Okay, beef brisket. This is looking good. I'm getting hungry already. Okay, so we can see this right here. All everything gets loaded. And what if we actually want a category detail, the recipe detail page, and this beef brisket is looking real nice. I'm already getting hungry, seriously. And I'm just going to click on this, and we can see it loads every information that we actually really need right here. Okay, and the recipe of the moment. Oh, that got changed again. Oh my god, I'm getting hungry the more I'm building this. Okay, so we can actually click on this and it changes, and we should see it fetch, okay, the data, and we can see it right here, which is actually cool and which is actually real nice. So we can see that our recipe app is now functioning and is actually working nicely. Okay, now you might be thinking that we are essentially done with our app, and in a particular sense we are basically done with fetching of everything we need to fetch except for this right here. But one thing you should have noticed is, since we are fetching a random API, a random recipe in this particular component, which is the recipe of the moment, and right here right now we have shawarma, and oh my god, I'm getting hungrier, and we have this right here. Now if I should go to maybe the home page right here, and we come here, we see that it has loaded another, there has been changes, it has loaded another different recipe. And what if we actually decide to go back also, and then we can see that the recipe has also changed. Now this might not be totally ideal. We want, okay, whenever we've loaded a particular recipe of the moment and maybe the featured recipe, okay, we want this to be shared across all the necessary components. Okay, so we don't have to be rebuilding or be refetching and the data keep changing just on a simple route change. No, we don't want that. And this is where we're actually going to bring in state management into our app to make it even more awesome. So I'm going to see you there.